Hey everybody, how's it going? Thiago here, and I'm starting a new series on the channel. The series is called What Makes This English Great. Basically, in this new series, I'll be breaking down the English from some of the most iconic artists of all time. And I'll be focusing specifically on the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s period. It's going to be a great series. I'm pumped about it, and I hope you are too. Today, for the first episode, we're going to be talking about Sylvester Stallone's English. And this is an interview that he gave for BBC in 1977. He had just found fame with the first Rocky movie. And in this conversation, he's basically sharing his struggles in getting this movie, which was his breakthrough, made. So let's get started here and let's see what the man himself has to say. Here we go.
You've written several scripts before, but was there any special reason for you to write this one, to write Rocky?
Well, I felt at the time that cinema, at least, the movies I had been seeing, were at an all-time.
You know, it's interesting to see that he's using the past perfect from the get-go. He says, movies I had been seeing. Listen to that part again.
I had been seeing were at.
Here it is.
That cinema, at least, the movies I had been seeing were at an all.
You see, movies I had been seeing. Because, you know, the past perfect is one of those grammar structures that is kind of obscure, you know, and learners, they study about it, but they never really get to use it. They never really incorporate the structure the way they should. But here's the thing. Even though the past perfect is not as commonly used as other present tenses, like present simple, present continuous, present perfect, it is used in conversation still, as you can see here. And another reason why I'm pointing this out is because if you haven't internalized this structure yourself, you know, in your English, chances are you missed this. You didn't really understand all the words he used here. Listen again.
At least, the movies I had been seeing were at an.
See, movies I had been seeing. That's what he's saying. But again, if you haven't internalized this grammar structure and made it part of your English, you probably missed this. You understood the idea, yes. You got maybe what he's trying to say here. But if you had to write down exactly what he said, you wouldn't be able to do that. So remember this, all right? Usually, your listening skills are very attached to your production skills, to your communication skills, meaning that in order for you to recognize more things when you listen to English, you need to be able to produce those things as well, if you have to write something or even speak English, all right? So you cannot recognize what you cannot produce. Let's continue here with Stallone.
All-time low. Everything was anti-society, anti-Christ, anti-government, anti-everything, and there was no one to root for.
There was no one to root for. So he's basically criticizing the movies of that time period, of his present moment back in the 70s. It was all anti-things. I would imagine movies protesting about stuff and maybe darker types of movies, but there was no one to root for, meaning there wasn't a movie with a hero that people could relate to and look up to.
And I also feel that films are very cyclic, so I wanted to get back into the cycle of the films of the 40s and the 50s, where people say, hey, gee, I missed the good old films, yet Hollywood hasn't taken heed and hasn't made any good old-fashioned type films where.
You know what I find interesting? This interview was in 1977, and he's talking about the 40s and the 50s as the time of the greatest movies or the good old movies, right? This is really cool because, you know, I find myself nowadays, you know, in 2020s, reminiscing about the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s as the decades of the greatest movies, you know? It's a funny feeling, yeah? Maybe, like he said, it's something cyclical, you know? Certain kinds of movies are made for a few years or decades, and then other types of movies become popular again, and then that feeling of, oh, I miss those old movies is ongoing. It's really cool.
Morality was at the forefront. So I took the opportunity to write this particular film, of course, being somewhat selfish because I had myself in mind for it. but that was the main motivation.
But it was fairly presumptuous of you, wasn't it, to expect to be able to star in it, because your career up to then had been small parts, right?
Yeah, that's kind of you to even say small. Yeah.
Yeah, the interviewer is basically asking him, weren't you a little bit presumptuous or a little bit arrogant, expecting that you would be cast as the star of this movie that you wrote, Rocky?
They were. I was mostly what is known as atmosphere. Always in the background, or the guy that was the drunk that was being stepped over in the gutter, and other lame roles.
Other lame roles. So, like I said, I mean, this was the beginning of his career. I mean, he had just found fame, like true fame, with Rocky here. But up until that point, before Rocky, he was already in the scene. He was already making some movies, but small roles, like you said, and lame roles, okay? If you call something lame, it's of bad quality, it's poor quality, so bad roles, basically.
But I felt that, geez, if I was going to go down, at least into professional obscurity, I wanted to at least have the opportunity to say to myself, well, you tried. You put your best foot forward, and you didn't make it.
He's using a couple of nice expressions here. You put your best foot forward. When you put your best foot forward, you do your best. And you didn't make it. When you don't make it, you don't succeed. You don't achieve your goal.
So that's what, I guess you might say, provoked me into...
Wow. Did you hear that? Listen to that again.
Make it. So that's what, I guess you might say, provoked me.
That's what provoked me. Wow. Provoke is such an advanced word. It's a C1 level word, at least, guys. C1 to C2 level word. I find it really cool that he's using that advanced piece of vocabulary. Provoke me.
To write the script, because it wasn't something that I had given a lot of thought to. I just knew that I had to do it one time, and it was innate.
It was innate. If something is innate, it's part of who you are. It's who you are in your essence. All right. And apparently he had this drive of proving to himself that he could do something great in Hollywood. He could come up with a story, star in it, and, be respected as a creative person.
The thing was, what was the proper vehicle? I surely couldn't pass myself off, at least as a lawyer in a three-piece suit. I just don't think I have that kind of appeal or whatever it is. So I wanted to take it much more basic, a man from the street. All right.
Okay, so, when I see young Stallone speaking in this interview, I see a clever, grounded young man. I think he was in his 30s here, yeah? Early to mid-30s probably. And what I like about this bit was how self-aware he was. He's saying here that he probably couldn't pass off as a lawyer in a movie because of his physique, the way he looks, So the character that he wanted to write for himself ended up being a boxer, a fighter. I love this self-awareness. Let's listen to that bit again.
It was innate. Now, the thing was, what was the proper vehicle? I surely couldn't pass myself off, at least as a lawyer in a three-piece suit. I just don't think I have that kind of appeal or whatever it is. So I wanted to take it much more basic, a man from the street. All right, what kind of a man? An underdog, and that being a professional fighter.
An underdog. An underdog is a man, in this case, who has no privileges, no special talent, no special connections. And think of a competition between two people. Usually we have the favorite person, usually the champion, right? The most famous competitor there. And we have the underdog. Yeah, the guy that's going to go up against him and, who has none of the connections, talent, skills, privileges that the superstar has. All right. So Rocky is an underdog, the way he conceived the character.
I think has that connotation to it.
But, when these big wheeler dealers got hold of your script and they were told that Sylvester Stallone wanted to star in it, they must have said, who?
Right. Or what?
Or what? Yes.
Yeah.
I also like his sense of humor. Yeah, he's a bright man here with a very clever sense of humor. The interviewer is saying, who is this Sylvester Stallone guy who wants to star in this movie. And then Stallone says, what? You know, who or what? Yeah, referring to him as a thing, right? Not as a person. I like that sense of humor. You know?
How did you sell yourself to them?
Usually it's the old syndrome of knocking on the windows, pestering them, pressing my face in the door, honking their horn in the driveway. In other words, making a real pain in the neck out of myself.
Great expression here. Again, just to illustrate his sense of humor, yeah? He's talking about knocking on windows, honking the executive's horns. Like, you know, he was very insistent in order to try to get noticed, yeah? But he used a really cool expression here.
Usually it's the old syndrome of knocking on the windows, pestering them, pressing my face in the door, honking their horn in the driveway. In other words, making a real pain in the neck out of myself.
Making a real pain in the neck out of myself. So if you call someone a pain in the neck, you mean that that person is annoying. So we can understand that he was so insistent in getting noticed by the studio to the point that he might have become annoying to the executives there.
And slowly they began to see, well, perhaps he's got something. They first showed it to Jimmy Caan, and then Burt Reynolds and Ryan O'Neal and Gene Hackman and Robert Redford, and they showed it to all these people.
All these guys he's naming, they were already established actors, you know, at that time. He was still an unknown kid.
But I kept saying, I work a lot cheaper and a lot harder and for a lot longer.
Nice case of comparatives being used here, right? He's using comparatives. Cheaper, harder, longer. Really cool. Let's listen to that part again.
These people. But I kept saying, I work a lot cheaper and a lot harder and for a lot longer. And also, I think that they were taken up with kind of like the pioneer spirit of it. It wasn't going to, it's a small movie. It was made for like 1/10 or 1/15 of what they pay, say, a James Bond movie or a Pink Panther.
It cost about $1 million, in fact.
Well, it came in at $960,000, which is...
So the first Rocky movie cost $960,000, almost $1 million, not even $1 million. So it was a low-budget movie at the time.
What a good toothpaste commercial cost in the United States, really.
You see, he's even comparing that to a toothpaste commercial. Listen again.
It cost about $1 million, in fact.
Well, it came in at $960,000, which is what a good toothpaste commercial cost in the United States, really.
Wow. So even in the 70s, apparently a good toothpaste commercial would cost $1 million to be made. So basically, what people back then would spend on a well-made commercial, that was the money he had to make this two-hour movie happen. So it was a low-budget movie for sure.
So they didn't have that much to lose, but more than that, they really felt that this was kind of like a special movie that would appeal to the masses.
Appeal to the masses, to the general public.
And it's the kind of film that hadn't been done in quite a while, where there wasn't any curse.
Wow, Past Perfect again. It's the kind of movie that hadn't been done in quite a while. Let's listen to that Past Perfect that he's using yet once again.
That they really felt that this was kind of like a special movie that would appeal to the masses. And it's the kind of film that hadn't been done in quite a while, where there was...
Did you hear that? The kind of movie that hadn't been done in quite a while. That's Past Perfect. Again, make sure you notice structures like that and use structures like that whenever you can, because you got to become good at identifying those. You know, it's not just about getting the main idea of what he's saying, but also getting the kind of language that he's using here, the vocabulary, the expressions, the grammar, even the more obscure grammar, like Past Perfect. This must be like the second or third time he's using Past Perfect in this interview. It's incredible.
Wasn't any cursing, yet you didn't miss the cursing in that type.
But after all, when you first went along with your script, I mean, they liked the script, but they were so desperate not to have you that they kept offering you increasingly large sums of money to go away, didn't they?
Right, it went up to about $265,000.
Not to appear in the film.
Right, to stay away, to get off my lawn, boy.
Because, you know, he wrote the script, right? He wrote the script for Rocky, but he also wanted to act in it. He wanted to star in it. But apparently the studio didn't want him to play Rocky. So they kept offering him more and more money to give up the script and give up starring in it. $265,000, he said. That was back in the 70s. I guess in today's money, that would be probably $1 million, at least $1 million, I would say. $1 million upwards.
But what they didn't count on is when a person hasn't had that type of money, they really don't miss it. In other words,
he's using present perfect here. Did you hear that? When a person hasn't had that type of money, when a person hasn't had that type of money, you don't miss it. Nice. So from past perfect, he's now using present perfect. Amazing.
when a person hasn't had that type of money, they really don't miss it. In other words, if you haven't ridden in a Rolls Royce, you don't mind bouncing around in a Volkswagen. You don't have that frame of reference. But more than that, I knew that if I sold it, even for $500,000, I knew that after the money was gone, I would become very bitter for having sold out because my...
Yeah, when you become a bitter person, like he's saying here, you become a resentful person, okay? Bitter is the taste of coffee, for example, coffee with no sugar. I love it, but, you know, for people who are not used to it, drinking coffee without sugar tastes bitter at first. So if you become bitter as a person, you become resentful, all right? You live with regret, basically. And it's not a good feeling to have.
My one love was to at least fail on my own terms. I wanted to see if I could act, because all these bit parts that you're talking about, you really couldn't say this kid had talent or it was just a big fake. So they were caught up in kind of like the enthusiasm. Jeez.
You see, so he refused to sell the script that he had written for that much money because, you know, he really wanted to test himself, put himself to the test and see if he could be the star in a leading role.
Oh, my God. Well, why not? All right, we'll give him a chance. And they put a lot of clauses in the contract, like if I fell in love with my leading man or, you know, if I curse a nun or if I don't brush my teeth or whatever, I could be removed.
You see, the sense of humor kicking in there, yeah? As he's describing all the, let's say, small little clauses that were added to the contract, right? So he has a very pleasant, sharp sense of humor.
From the script after production after 5 to 10 days. But all that aside, I really think that they just wanted to get rid of me. And they said, well, let's put him in a movie. That'll get rid of him.
They just wanted to get rid of me. So when you get rid of someone or something, you don't want to see that thing or that person anymore. So we understand that he was so insistent, right? He was a pain in the neck of the studio there. And, you know, it was a low-budget movie anyway. It wouldn't cost the studio so much money. So, you know what? Just let this kid star in this movie. And, you know, it has mass appeal, so let's see what happens. That was basically the studio's attitude. 2 months, you know, that kind of thing.
And you did it, in fact, for a very small fee. Was it $20,000 plus a percentage?
Right, $20,000. And what we have is a Screen Actors Guild minimum, which is about $600 a week. $600.
So he didn't get paid much to star in Rocky. Amazing.
And 20 after taxes.
But were you not really quite poor at that time? Your wife, I've read all these stories about your wife going out to support you while you sat at home and pounded the typewriter. All this was true, was it?
Oh, yeah. At that time, I must admit, my life was definitely on the wane, at least professionally.
Another great expression here, yeah? He's saying, my life was definitely on the wane. So when something's on the wane, it's losing power, influence, quality, you know? It's just basically going downhill. So he's saying that his life was on the wane. Let's listen to that again.
While you sat at home and pounded the typewriter. All this was true, was it?
Oh, yeah. At that time, I must admit, my life was definitely on the wane, at least professionally.
So he means his life was, you know, just, you know, getting worse and worse in every area.
I was emotionally, spiritually, physically bankrupt.
Emotionally, spiritually, physically bankrupt. So he was in a bad place, right? I love the adverbs he's using here, right? Emotionally, spiritually, physically. These are all adverbs.
I had about $106 in the bank. I had a landlord. She's a female landlord, but...
A landlord is a person who rents your apartment or house, for example. It's a person who owns the building, the house, the apartment you live in, and who collects your rent. All right?
She was so big that when she came to collect the rent, like an entire shadow would cover the building. You know what I mean? It's like a total eclipse. And I mean, I'm not a small man, but she was a vicious individual, and
She was a vicious individual. If you call a person vicious, you mean that that person is aggressive and violent. You know, you can also call an animal vicious. You know, aggressive, violent.
have thought nothing about taking my car and bending it in half, and she didn't get her money. And so I had $106. The rent was $300. I had a pregnant wife. I have a very huge British dog, as a matter of fact, a bull mastiff, who would eat anything, organic or unorganic, anything, cactus.
Including the landlady.
Yeah, he's talking about his dog. Yeah, the bull mastiff. Yeah, that's the breed of his dog at the time. And I do believe that he had to sell his dog at the time because, you know, he was so poor. And then after he made money with Rocky, you know, he bought the dog back, you know. And in the movie, his dog is called Butkus.
Landlady, I mean, feed it. What do you want to feed it? A brick. Give it a brick tonight. Anything. So that I had that kind of like dilemma. So you might say I had quite a bit of fuel to sit down and write the script. I wrote the script in about 3.5 days, and only because I
Wow, he wrote the script. He wrote the entire script for Rocky in 3.5 days. That was super fast, wasn't it? But again, I mean, taking into consideration how his life was going back then, he had a lot of fire, right, and motivation to actually get this thing done.
could hear the wolf at the door, literally.
Ooh, nice expression here. Let me go back.
I had quite a bit of fuel to sit down and write the script. I wrote the script in about 3.5 days, and only because I could hear the wolf at the door, literally.
So he was only able to write so quickly because he could hear the wolf at the door. That's an expression. When the wolf is at the door, or when you hear the wolf at the door, you mean that your situation, your life, especially financially speaking, is so bad and is getting worse and worse so quickly that pretty soon you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your home. You're not going to have anything to eat pretty soon, you know. So there are people like the landlord lady there, the female landlord, trying to collect the rent, you know, bill collectors. So when you are in that situation where you're not making enough money to survive, and there are many bill collectors around, you know, trying to get you to pay what you owe, you can say that you hear the wolf at the door. So it basically means that you and your family are not safe yet from a financial standpoint. Excuse me.
And that part was true, really was. It was getting right down to scraping the old bottom of the barrel.
Another great expression. He was scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like, you know, he had nothing else left, you know, so he was living, you know, in dire circumstances, let's say.
Did you not feel any doubts at all? I mean, when on that first day of shooting, when you step out of your caravan or dressing room or whatever to go and appear before the camera, was there never a moment when you thought, my God, am I doing the right thing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Up until that time, I was bluffing. You know, they said, yeah, I can act. I'm a good actor. Just give me a chance. Of course I can do it. I can out-act anyway. Don't worry about it. Then they said, okay, do it. They called my bluff. Now.
Great expression here. They called my bluff. The word bluff is usually used in games like card games, like poker, for example. You know, maybe you have a bad hand, you have bad cards in that round, and if you're good enough, you can bluff, you can lie to your opponents there and still win the game, still win the table, the round, even though what you really have in your hands sucks, you know. So when you do that, you are bluffing, all right? So he's using that word to describe his acting back then. Like, you know, he was telling everybody, hey, I can act. I can be a leading man. I can do that, you know. He was bluffing because, you know, he wasn't that confident in himself yet to do it until the studio exec said, okay, so do it. In other words, they called his bluff. So now he had to show his cards, let's say.
Now, if I go out there and make a fool out of myself, I've wasted $1 million. I've destroyed my reputation. Any young artist that comes along and says that they'd like to make a movie, they're going to say, hey, don't you remember Stallone? You want to make a bomb? And my name would be synonymous with turkeys and bombs. I say,
It's funny how he's using the word turkeys and bombs here, because, you know, if you call something a turkey, in that sense, it means that it's stupid, it's foolish, it's again, poor quality, it's a failure, it's a complete failure, you know, it's a turkey, right? And also bomb. If something bombs, you know, that verb means it's a complete disaster, it's a complete failure, all right? So you see, the stakes getting higher and higher here for him, you know?
hey, why don't you go out and make a Stallone film, which would mean turkey all the time, tax write-off. Make a Stallone movie for tax
You see, his sense of humor, he has a very nice sense of humor. I like his sense of humor.
write-off. So there was tremendous fear. And when that fear subsided was at
When that fear subsided, nice advanced word he's using here. When something subsides, it becomes less intense, you know? So he's saying when that fear of failure subsided, when that fear reduced in intensity, when he started to feel more comfortable and less afraid,
the last second, as I was going out of the trailer, we ride around these trailers to the set. It was freezing. It was about 4:30 in the morning. The winds were blowing down the street, very dramatic, and it was cold. And there was the Philadelphia City Hall clock there lit up, and the wind was blowing and mist and all that. And as I'm pulling out of stepping out of the trailer, I passed this mirror, and I said, "All right, now you're gonna do it, or you're gonna sit here and become a bum for the rest of your life. What do you?"
become a bum for the rest of your life. A bum is a guy who, you know, lives on the street and, you know, is not really adding anything more to society aside from being a burden, you know? So, yeah, it's a person who, you know, hasn't achieved anything in life. That's a bum, all right?
Are you into the character? Are you the character? And someone outside said, all right, Sylvester, let's go. I said, no, you got the name wrong. It's Rocky. Bang, right away. And I felt that
I like his voice. Like, you know, he's kind of leaning into the character there. Oh, no, it's Rocky, you know?
when it said, geez, I'm not Sylvester anymore. I've got to be this character. And as soon as I stepped out, I saw the director laying in all this wind and dust, and everyone was so into it that I felt very, very safe. And after seeing the first daily, the rushes, the first day's prints, I knew we had if nothing else, I had a good home movie on my hand. A good 2.5-hour home movie that my parents would enjoy, if nothing else.
It's about boxing, of course, but it is about more than that, is it?
Oh,
is
yeah.
Is it about your own struggle, basically?
What it is I took my particular plight, which isn't unique. It's every artist or any man who has ever wanted to do something, man or woman, meaning, that's wanted to do something that has not been able to do it because of the inability to get a break.
The inability to get a break. Again, I mean, I love his language use here. He's using the noun inability. Yeah, so people who are trying to achieve something great in life, but they can't because of the inability of getting a break. Let's go back a little bit.
That has not been able to do it because of the inability to get a break.
The inability to get a break. So when you get a break, you finally have a chance. You finally have an opportunity. You know, maybe you spend years working hard and trying to find that opportunity that is going to change your life for the better and, you know, bring you tons of money and success and recognition, you know. But that break, that chance, that opportunity doesn't seem to come ever, you know. So that's what he's talking about. People who are like he was, you know, trying to achieve something in Hollywood, in his case, but he just never had the break. He never had the chance, the opportunity, you know? And if you watch the first Rocky movie, that's exactly what it is about. I mean, Rocky is an underdog boxer, and nobody knows him. And he gets the break. He gets the chance to fight the champion, Apollo.
The opportunity has never knocked on their door, for example. So I said, geez, if I could take my plight as an actor and put him into a real underdog, a very physical, that being a boxer, and tell my story. Like I couldn't get an agent, and he couldn't get a manager, and I couldn't. I had no love in my life at the time, and he didn't either, and so on and so forth. So that's how that came about. So because I really didn't think the audience. If I say I'd written it about a struggling writer in California in Hollywood, and here he is bombing around in his convertible with a suntan, but his scripts aren't selling. So what?
Yeah.
I mean.
You see, it shows his intelligence and his sharpness as a creative. You know, he knew that if he wrote the character very similar to who he was in real life, a struggling writer who can't sell his scripts in Hollywood, it wouldn't have that mass appeal. But if you have a guy like Rocky, you know, an uneducated boxer guy who is very poor and who gets the chance to change his life, you see, that is more appealing to the masses. So he knew that that was the right angle to take with that story.
You know, at least he has a tan, right? You know, what do you convert? Right, with tomato juice or orange juice, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So this I set in a very gloomy area of Philadelphia, which is very, very industrial.
Something gloomy, something dark, you know, kind of depressing.
It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So this I set in a very gloomy area of Philadelphia, which is very, very industrial type town, a muscular town, a town that has gone historically kind of like down the proverbial tubes.
Great expression he's using here. When something goes down the tubes, you know, it fails. You know, it just, it declines as the years go by, you know. So the fact that he's using the word proverbial not only shows his wide vocabulary range, but also emphasizes the fact that Philadelphia, at least at the time, was in decline. It was a city in decline, and that's the city he chose to be the setting of Rocky, yeah, for the story to happen.
And that's why I chose that. Plus, it's a town, if there was ever a miracle going to happen in America, it would happen in Philadelphia, really.
And in fact, that's what happened, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
Because to complete the fairy story, I mean, it's an immense success, this film in America, isn't it?
Right, it is. It is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Philadelphia after Rocky was never the same. The city of Philadelphia after the Rocky movies were never the same. Nowadays, we associate Philadelphia with Rocky. So, you know, if he was going down the tubes back then, you know, the city has definitely improved a lot, I would say.
Some people have said, well, this could never happen, that an underdog would get a shot at the title like this. Well, I'd like to take.
A shot at the title is like a chance at the title. In boxing, at the heavyweight title.
Issue with that. Of course, it happened many, many hundreds of times. Ali has done it, and it happened with Joe Louis when he had the Bum of the Month Club, and it happens all the time. So it's a very, very feasible plot. It's
a feasible plot. The plot of a movie is the story of a movie, right? And something feasible is something that is realistic, that can happen. It's not far-fetched or out there. It is feasible. It is possible for a complete unknown person to get a shot at something, a big shot at something.
just the most thing that had happened to me is a little miraculous. That's the only strange thing about it. And it's a love story.
Yeah.
More than a fight film.
But it's made you into a very big star, hasn't it? I mean, you're recognized wherever you go in the States.
Oh, God. I keep thinking about that term, though. Not to take issue again, but when I think of the word star, I think of like a ball of gas. You know, I don't think I'd like to be considered just a performer. But it has made.
Yeah, because, you know, this is a young Stallone here, yeah? I think the whole thing of fame was still new for him here in this interview, yeah? So, you know, he felt a little bit uncomfortable being called a star, at least, you know, at that time, you know, because he preferred to be called a performer, yeah? It's that thing of experiencing fame for a little time, you know, for a short amount of time, and you're still kind of getting used to it. We can definitely see it here, yeah? He was already considered famous here, yeah, because of Rocky, at least in the States, yeah? But, you know, I think I can see that he was still getting used to that idea of becoming a movie star.
Made me, it has killed the wolf at the door, and now I have the...
Nice. He is bringing back that expression. Remember, when you hear the wolf at the door, basically you hear financial problems coming at you.
Nothing, not to take issue again, but when I think of the word star, I think of like a ball of gas. You know, I don't think I'd like to be considered just a performer. But it has made me, it has killed the wolf at the door.
It has killed the wolf at the door. The fact that Rocky became so successful as a movie killed the wolf at the door. In other words, those money, financial problems that he was experiencing before were gone. So the wolf at the door was killed. You got the expression? This is amazing English that he's using here.
And now I have the opportunity to go on and do films that aren't always in speeding cars or about slinky women or a guy with a bad complexion or what, you know, these terrible plots that they have given me. I mean, they had plots before that, like Linda in the Meat Cleaver, and terrible shows. I mean, my God.
Great stuff. Yeah.
Right, for 4 years of college for this?
By the way, guys, you know, I'm not stopping every time here to, you know, define everything. But, you know, if there is something here that I didn't stop and define, just ask me in the comment below. You know, leave a comment down below with your question. And I'll be happy to help you understand what was said here, okay?
And what about the Rocky? Are there going to be any more stories about Rocky, films about Rocky?
Well, I was thinking about having like Rocky on Venus. No, sir, just a very, very simple movie about a boxer.
You know, it's really cool, yeah, because, you know, this interview, I mean, at the time of this interview, there was only one Rocky movie, the first, you know? And to think that nowadays, I mean, it has become a franchise, basically, right? I mean, I don't know even how many Rocky films we have. I mean, I think we have 6 in the original story with Rocky, and then we have the Creed movies as well, more recently. So it has grown considerably.
Who gets caught in a space capsule. It's transported. Now, you don't believe that, do you?
Not really. In Philadelphia, it could happen, but
No,
not here.
there is. I wrote Rocky as a trilogy. Because I think that this type of character cannot be extinguished after one movie. He's right at the peak. When people see the film, they'll know what I mean. And
Wow, his original idea was for Rocky to be a trilogy. Well, I mean, more movies were made than 3, you know. He did use a very nice advanced word here, guys. Let me go back.
because I think that this type of character cannot be extinguished after.
This type of character cannot be extinguished. Very nice advanced word here. C1 level word, C2 level word. Extinguished or eliminated.
One movie. He's right at the peak. When people see the film, they'll know what I mean. And entering into that second phase is almost as interesting as the first.
But aren't you then in danger of getting yourself into the other trap of acting that you'll only be associated with the one character?
Right. That is a danger. So that won't happen, at least for, I'll do 2 films in between that.
That's a good question that the presenter is asking, right? I mean, aren't you afraid of maybe being recognized as the character? And, you know, when people look at you and think of Stallone, all they think is Rocky. Yeah. I think, you know, that wasn't the case, right? Because, you know, even after that, I mean, Stallone made Rambo, right? So he is known for Rocky, for Rambo, but he made so many other movies. He's had a great career, yeah? But again, I mean, it feels great to go back to this time period where the star wasn't yet the big star we know nowadays. And, you know, he was still experiencing that fame for the first time and, you know, was a bit insecure about certain things, you know, related to his career. He was young here. He was in his 30s. Yeah, so it's incredible.
But if I had to be locked into any kind of character, I would sure rather be locked into this one than, let's say, the Count of Monte Cristo, where I have to run around in leotards for the rest of my life.
Anyway, you can worry about it while you count your money.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I only have about $400 more than when I started. So
I can't believe that. You
it's
must
true.
Look at that, you know. He only has $400 more in the bank account? What happened?
you must have made a lot of money out of this.
No, because I had a lot of bills, you might say. That big beastie landlord came back and took her share, and taxes took the rest of it. So, but
You see, so he made good money with the first Rocky film. Maybe we could say that he made a lot of money with the Rocky films, but he also had a lot of bills to pay, a lot of debt, you know? So, you know, we can understand that it wasn't a movie that truly made him wealthy, yeah?
like I said before we came on, I would have done the whole thing for like a donut and a tuna fish sandwich. The money meant nothing. It was the opportunity to at least prove to myself that I was that I wasn't a liar, that I wasn't living a life of disillusionment, because that's very difficult when you think of yourself as being a very creative person, and you turn around and at, say, 40, 50, 60 years old, you realize, gee, you're not so creative, you're terrible, you've been leading a lie.
Wow, he's talking about something really deep here, yeah? The reason why he wanted that opportunity to prove to himself that he wasn't a fake or a lie was that he didn't want to get to his 50s or 60s and realize only then that he wasn't supposed to be an actor, he wasn't supposed to be a writer or a creative person. And I think that that's a genuine fear that we all experience. You know, we want to make sure that whatever it is we're doing with our lives, professionally speaking, is the thing that we were cut out to do in the first place. You know, we don't want to get to our 50s and 60s, look back and go, oh man, I mean, I just spent my life, my working life doing this. I'm not even that good at that. I should have done something else. Yeah, living with that regret. So he's talking about something really deep here. To answer the question, what makes this English great? I think that Stallone here in this interview, he communicates in a very serene, calm, peaceful way. He has great sense of humor, which I think is fundamental, is essential for any conversation, any interaction you're going to engage in with other people. And he has a wide range of vocabulary. He used really nice words here, some advanced words, C1, C2 level words like extinguish or provoke, not to mention the idiomatic expressions that he used. So it's great to see that, because I'm sure that some people might think of Stallone and associate him with the action movies he makes and look at him just like an actor that does that kind of stuff. But watching interviews like this, you know, tells us that he's actually a genius, you know? He's an intelligent, clever man, and, you know, he deserves all the success he's experienced so far, you know? So that was incredible. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, this breakdown. This was the first episode of the series. There will be more videos like this coming up soon here on the channel, more breakdowns. Let me know in the comments what you thought about today's lesson. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions of breakdowns for me to do for the next What Makes This English Great series. And thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts here in the comment section, and I'll speak to you soon.